All right, Gary, when were you contacted by Mr. Foster? Or have you been retained? I mean, when were you contacted by him?
Yeah, about a week ago. Well, it would have been a day or so after his arrest. I was contacted by his wife, and I went down to speak to him. I think it was last Thursday or Friday. I'd only spoken with Michael that one time before this morning.
You know, we were expecting a preliminary hearing to go forward here, but you guys decided to waive. Explain to us why you did that. I know you explained to the judge.
Well, what's interesting about this case is as soon as the body is identified, Michael is arrested on the heels of that discovery. And I needed to know exactly, or at least generally, what the prosecution had that would lead them to be comfortable with making an arrest that quickly, and particularly with an arrest where they don't have a cause of death. And I was fortunate enough to obtain some information from Chief ADA Mills this morning, which I had a chance to look over quickly, and which I believe would have been sufficient had it gone into the record this morning to hold Michael over for action of a grand jury. I got nothing against you guys, media guys, being in on a hearing, but based on what I'm looking at, I think it was in my client's best interest that that not be divulged to the media before the grand jury gets a chance to take a look at the evidence. So Michael decided, on my advice, that we would waive this morning's hearing and let the grand jury proceeding take its course.
Have you defended many folks like this who are, you know, looking at or accused of a crime that happened over a decade ago? Is that different?
Well, a decade is kind of a long time. I've both prosecuted and defended cases that were 3 or 4 years old. This is a little bit exceptional given the extreme amount of time. There's a lot of issues and a lot of things I got to look over before I sit down with Michael again. As I say, this was an exercise this morning in only trying to get me enough information to answer a couple questions for Michael as to why he was arrested. We were able to do that.
Do you feel like he was arrested justly, I guess, after perusing?
Well, it doesn't take much to make a legal arrest, you know, reasonable cause, and if you find a body and you have some other evidence independent of that body, that's usually sufficient to make an arrest. So I won't be challenging the legality of Michael's arrest based on the information I have now.
But you're saying what you saw, you're calling it prejudicial in nature. Do you really think that minds would have been changed, or this would have, you know, impeded a fair trial if it comes to that, if you know, this was to be out in the open, some of this information?
Well, I think this information is going to get out in the open at some point in time prior to trial, but what I'm concerned about right now, Jeff, in the short term, is the grand jury presentation and trying to keep as even a playing field in the grand jury proceeding as we can.
A two-part question. Do you expect it to go to trial, and can you get a fair trial in Jefferson County?
I can get a fair trial anywhere. In a case like this, you prepare for it to go to trial. You always expect the worst. You expect to be in for the long run, and it's way too premature in this case, given the fact that I've only read a couple pieces of a statement. But I have advised my client that when you're charged with murder and indicted for murder, you're probably in for the long haul, so we'll be prepared for that.
Has there been does he remain jailed without bail, or will you be looking to have a bail amount set?
I'll be discussing bail with Chief ADA Mills and Judge Marta Savage possibly within the next week. We are not. That's not the top on our list of priorities right now, but we will be discussing that sometime in the near future.
So the next step will be the grand jury? The
next step for the prosecution is the grand jury. They have 45 days in which to present this case to a grand jury. 45 days from the point of Michael's arrest. So based on what I'm looking at, I believe they could probably present this case tomorrow. I think they're probably ready to do that. So we'll have an indictment, I think, probably within a couple of weeks, and then we'll proceed from there.
Anything else, Gary?
No, that'll do it.